Hey everyone, so from the last video, I discussed how to, I discussed that I was trying to persist data between child states and also between parent states to achieve this awesome feature where suppose you're on view 125 and have the second tab open and you click off of home to something like corporate internet filing information. Now, in the background, home has dismounted. But if the user clicks home again, it's as if nothing changed. And this is only because it's a small, what's that called? Small view, so that there wasn't much loading. Data didn't get loaded. But if you were on, suppose, schedule 200, and you click off home and go back to home, there's a small loading icon that shows up every time. So that's an indication that home is being remounted whenever it gets clicked off of. And there is a way to prevent that, and it's using display none, but you have to do some custom route matching. And I am not in that. It's not a priority, right? It's not a big thing at the moment when the entire app is incomplete. But let's get right back into it. So the problem is that you're on schedule 125. You're in this view and you want to persist this tab thing. And what I was doing before was that for, let's see, the actual schedule open between the two, how was I saving this information? I was saving it in the app scope, and I was using a state. So what would happen is that whenever you click on a schedule, the parent state would get updated after the home state gets updated, because I'd use a use effect or use let effect, as I talked about in the last video. I would just capture it and I'd update the state parent, the parent state. And do you know why that's an issue, guys? You can read. Oh yeah, there's a blog post as well for this if you want to do that. If you want to read that, but basically what happens is that when you update the app state in the home state, that means there is an additional render. Actually, it's not just an additional render. Home itself gets rendered again. So this is a big performance hindrance because when you click on a different schedule, then first it does that, and since app gets updated, the entire home component gets remounted. And that's annoying, right? That's super annoying. And you wouldn't notice it because you aren't debugging it. But that's basically what happens. And this is what happens if you just jump to conclusions, and as I did, and instead of figuring out the question how to persist data between children across children, I searched up, oh, I'll just save it to the parent. And I said, okay, I'll use state. And then you search up how to save state of parent in React, and then you end up making a mistake, right? And that is the wrong way to go about it because the state is in the home. And since you want to persist variables, this is where useRef comes into play. So before I used useCookie, which was yesterday or today, I was actually using ref right after I switched from state. So what to do is that you would, I don't want to give you an example of the what not to do because it was really bad. But basically, you to not don't do this. It's a state. Okay, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. Sorry. See, I cannot record a video and talk and program. It's just not possible for me to do. I don't know. I can't do that. I'm gonna make so many mistakes if I did that. But anyways, I had state and set state, and then I'd pass it as a prop to home, and then the home I'd have its own state where I do schedule set schedule as use state, and then I do state or schedule.value. And this was a huge mess, and I never figured out the issue because I kept on doing that or, so it would never use the default one. And it's super annoying, right? It's super annoying. That was super annoying. But anyways, what was I going to say? Is that what's it called? Yes, useRef. So instead of doing this, you can use useRef. Now, useRef has always been used or given as examples as, oh wait, I definitely used this wrong. This is not how you use it. This is how you use it. Sorry, that was my mistake. But anyways, useRef is always being used in examples where it's tied to a component, and that is simply incorrect. That is not the only way to use useRef. UseRef is basically a reference to anything at all. That's basically what it's there for. It can be used for anything. It doesn't have to be a component. It could be anything, a variable, anything, okay? And the best part is that it does not trigger a render, okay? So that is where you use it. You use it for persistence, where it doesn't matter if it should not cause a re-render. It should only be proper when a re-render happens, okay? That's basically what it's there for, or what you can use it for. You don't have to use state. You can use ref for things like that. So what I was using before cookie was that, I'll tell you why I switched over to cookie, but I was calling useState over here, but then I would capture the state change and I'd update the ref so that whenever you switch from home to about and back to home, that ref would already be updated with the latest change, right? And so back here, I would do ref.current or schedule.dat value, and it would always work out. And I did this again over here with the active tab. I'd have a ref on the app side, and I'd change it again whenever the set tab would happen. I would update the ref on the app side. Yeah, exactly, on the app level. And so that you could get away and do what I just showed you, it would work out like this. But the difference is that useRef does not persist across sessions. That is another pitfall. Actually, it's not really a pitfall, but it really depends on what you want. And I said, this is a desktop app. I want things to be like seamless, okay, for the user. So here is the trick, the magic trick. Because I have used useCookie instead of useRef and useState, this is what I've been able to do. Suppose the user relaunches the app, and now what happens is that when the app gets launched again, which it should any moment now, see, it's my computer. My laptop is actually faster than my computer now because I spent some money on the laptop, and the laptop has better specs than my computer, my PC, which is pretty hilarious. But yeah, so what happens is that when the user opens the app again, it's exactly where it left off of. Nothing changed. This is amazing, is it not? And the best part is that I wanted to do this in a way different from the data. So as you can see here, there was a loading icon over here, and I said, I don't want this. I don't want that loading thing, okay? And that's where useCookie comes in. I created this custom hook recently. But basically, for this theme thing as well, when the user has a theme, I'll show you in comparison to what I mean. Wow, why that rhyme? But suppose you went to the Mantine docs, and you can see that it turns white for a long time before it turns dark. Now, this is because they use an asynchronous thing instead of a cookie. So if you compare this to my app, okay, this is crazy, but basically you can see that when I refresh the page, do you see that? The UI gets updated the same time as the theme changes because the default background is black, okay? And so when the user, oh yeah, by the way, I'm pressing a reload. So I'm pressing a hard refresh to get that dark screen. So this is when the page initially loads, when nothing's painted. I'm like spamming the reload button. And then this is when it loads. And you can see that the painting of these elements happens at the exact same time as the painting of the background or the theme. The theme gets selected. So there's no shenanigans as what they're doing over here, where it turns white for a whole second or half a second before it turns dark. But I've done it a bit smarter way. I even brought this up to him, the duck guy, the guy that created the library, and he didn't want to incorporate it. That's on him, but it's not really, I'm not in any place to tell him what to do, right? I know what to do in my opinion, and that's what I did. And so, of course, my users won't have to deal with that annoying thing because what he recommends is that you have to have a server with a cookie and stuff like that. But no, this is a client side only thing that doesn't require any, you know, what's it called? Hydration, basically. Server side rendering. That's basically what he said. He said you needed to use server side rendering, and that's overkill for such a simple thing when a cookie can do. So that's what I was doing before, but then I said, okay, I will actually just use useCookie instead. And there you go. I have a useCookie over here, got the cookie value, and then you can set the state as the cookie value or the default value, because that's how it should be. And then you can call useEffect so that every time the state gets updated, you update the cookie. And like I said in my last video, you don't need to use layout effect because this does not affect the UI unless the user reloads as soon as the state changes. So then there's an issue. But of course, any user that would do that is kind of dumb because they shouldn't expect things to save that quickly. Even though I bet you it can save that quickly. Anybody that thinks things can save that quickly, they're trying to break the app and don't care about their own data. If you cared about your own data, you wouldn't be trying to break the app, right? So there you go. That's exactly what you got there. And even then, even if you use layout effect, the user could reload. It's not even physically possible, but if the user tried reloading and it's a use layout effect, it's still possible. But this function is so fast, they might not be able to reload fast enough to skip this setting of the cookie. So anyways, in conclusion, you maybe to persist data across children, you can use useRef instead of useState because this won't, or sorry, you can use useState for that child component, but the parent should use useRef, or the parent of that should use a ref, not a state. There should never be two states to manage one thing or to keep track of one thing. There should only be one state to keep track of one thing, and everything else that is irrelevant to that state, or it's relevant to that state, but it's not relevant to the application state, the UI state, should be a ref. So the parent should be a ref, and the children should be a state, therefore everything works out. When you get two states, that means the child gets rendered twice, or sorry, an additional time. So it gets re-rendered instead of just its components being re-rendered. So instead of one of these things being re-rendered, the entire thing gets re-rendered, and that's pretty messed up. So, and lastly, if you want to persist data, not just in one session, but many sessions, then you can debate whether to use a cookie or LocalForage. And the difference is that if you want something simple and fast, use a cookie. If you want something complex that ends up being asynchronous, then you have to use LocalForage, which is what I did. Because you cannot store lists in a cookie, or I don't think so, and the cookies have limits as well. So you might want to use LocalForage instead for that. Or sorry, local storage. It's not called LocalForage. That's just the name of the the library. So of course it's local storage. So I hope I was pretty clear on this, pretty cool thing I did, which is to use a ref in a different way than most people give examples of, and using a cookie afterwards so that I can persist it not just across parent views, but also across what? Yeah, across sessions itself. So I will see you in the next video, which will be a bit smaller about translations itself, okay?